Okay, everybody, let's see what we got here. So we're going to solve an equation for the variable. So that means get the variable by itself. So we want to end up with v equals and then some number, or some number equals v, either way. So the v is by itself and everything else is on the other side. So we want to get the variable all by itself. Well, the 140 is already on the other side of the equation from v, so we don't need to worry about that. But the 214 is on the same side of the equation as v. Well, this 214 is a plus 214. So if we subtract 214 from both sides, we get 214 minus 214 on the left. Those cancel, or in other words, that's just zero. And then notice I'm not left with v on the right side. I'm left with negative v because so far I've done nothing with that negative sign. Now on the left, 140 minus 214, that'll be negative 74. Okay. Now this negative v on the right side is really just the same thing as negative 1 times v. So if I divide by negative 1, I'm going to get v equals just 74. And there's nothing magical about the answer being positive. Sometimes it's negative, and that's totally fine. That happens all the time. Also, nothing magical about the variable being on the right side versus the left. Okay. And that's basically how you do that one. So whenever you're solving for a variable in an equation, you just say, what's being done to the variable? Well, we've got this positive 214 here. Oh, what's the opposite of that? Well, subtracting 214. Because 214 minus v, that's the same thing as negative v plus 214. They're the same thing. If you think about it that way, it's maybe a little more obvious why I subtracted 214 from both sides. Now on this one, now there's two things to do because the variable this time is on the left side of the equation. All right, no big deal. With it on the left side is two numbers that we need to remove. Okay, so whenever we are solving an equation for a variable, which is going to happen a lot, we have to recognize, like we've seen in the past, that the order of operations has already been done to the variable. We've already multiplied the variable by 2 and then added it to 7. So we need to undo what's already been done and do the order of operations backwards. So first we tackle anything added or subtracted to the variable, and that would be 7. So if I subtract 7 from both sides, I get that. Then I say, all right, well, after the adding and subtracting, what's next? Anything multiplied or divided by the variable? Yeah, 2 is. What's the opposite of multiplying by 2? Well, dividing by 2. And we get v is 3. And you're going to get a lot of practice on this. You're going to get good at it fast. All right, so now this time there's parentheses. Well, let's get rid of the parentheses first because the w, we want to get that by itself, and it's stuck inside the parentheses. And so you and I, we're like SEAL Team 6. We have to break them out of there. So I'm going to multiply the 2 through the parentheses and get 6w and then minus 14. Now that the parentheses are gone, it's just like the last problem. I say, okay, whatever's being added or subtracted to the variable, handle that first. Well, what's the opposite of subtracting 14? Adding 14, silly. That's right. And so then that's going to leave us with 6w on the left and a 48 on the right. And then I would say, what's being done to the variable? It's being multiplied by 6. Well, what's the opposite of multiplying by 6? Dividing by 6. And 6 divided by 6 is just 1, as in 1w. And 48 divided by 6 is 8. And that's how it's done. So you first get rid of the parentheses by multiplying the number outside, multiplying it through. Okay, same thing again, except now there's a little more going on, but who cares? It's not a big deal. So we're going to multiply through the parentheses. Okay, so 8 times u is going to be, well, 8u. And 8 times 5 is 40. And then the minus 2u on the outside. He was outside the parentheses, so we didn't do anything with him yet. Now, the difference on this problem is the variable appears in two different locations. Well, on the left side, they're both on the left side or right side. So, and they're like terms, they both have a u. So I can combine them and say, I have a positive 8u minus 2u's. Well, that's going to be 6u's. And then the plus 40, we didn't do anything with it. And once again, now we're back to what we've been doing. So I'll tackle the thing that's being added to the variable first by subtracting 40, so that we get negative 6 equals 6u. And then I say, how do I get rid of the 6 times u? I do the opposite. I divide by 6. So those cancel, and I'm just left with 1u on the right and a negative 1 on the left. And that's how you handle that kind of a problem. Okay, on this one, it's really similar to the last one. We got to get rid of the parentheses. The variable appears in two different places, but the difference here is that the variables are not on the same side of the equation. All right, well, that's not going to be too big of a deal. First, we'll get rid of the parentheses. So we'll get 6w and then minus 30 on the left side, and the right side we're not changing yet. Okay, so the variable is outside the parentheses. There, we've made progress. But we want to end up at the end with w equals some number, which means we want to only have a single w in the problem. So we got to get them together. So I can do one of two things. I can subtract 6w from both sides, in which case on the left, 6w minus 6w is 0, and they're gone. And then there's no more w's on the left. Or I've got a minus 2w here, so I could add 2w to both sides. And then minus 2w and plus 2w is going to be 0. And it doesn't matter which way I do it. Okay, a lot of people like to end up with a w on the left side, but it doesn't matter. So 6w, I'll just do it this way. 6w plus 2w is 8w. And then the minus 30 and the 18, we haven't done anything with them yet. But now we're going to. Since we're putting all the w's on the left side, let's put everything else on the right. So I'm going to add 30. And let's see, so that's going to give me 8w equals 48. And then I'm going to divide by 8. And w is going to be 6. So that is how you do it. Right there, you got to get all the w's on one side, left or right, it doesn't matter. You get the same answer either